Hello YouTube, my name is Keith and this is from.end. So we are a team of cryptocurrency traders and investors. We've been running an Instagram page filled with information on trading cryptocurrencies relating to how we trade with our method, as well as we have a TikTok where it's a little bit more entertainment, a little bit less educational, but it's still some valuable information on there as well. You'll be able to find the links for both the TikTok and Instagram within the description. So I don't want to get into the method right now, but we will discuss how we trade when we get into the charts a little bit later in the video. But I just want to say before we jump into first the Discord, where we're going to talk a little bit about what we have there, I just want to say that we are not financial advisors. What we do have is thousands of hours looking at charts, backtesting, understanding the cryptocurrency market, and really diving deep into what makes a cryptocurrency market tick and how to profit from it. Now, I see more similarities with the Forex market with cryptocurrencies than stocks because of the 24-hour market nature, the pairs, and just the fact that there's no gaps, and just the price action itself looks a lot like the Forex market compared to stocks. So before we jump into the charts, I do want to just go over quickly what we have in the Discord to give you a little bit of an understanding of what we do there, because that is our home and that's our ecosystem. And then the YouTube is just going to be a little branch off our main home, which is going to be the Discord. And we'll be posting Bitcoin updates as well as general market updates, talking about other altcoins as well as Bitcoin. But for all things education, for all things learning about trading, we will mainly stick to that Discord in order to actually benefit the students who are within our from.end premium subscription service. So without further ado, let's get talking about the Discord. So welcome to the ecosystem. So if you've never used this will be a really quick overview of how to use our Discord. A link for this free channel will also be within the description below. So the first thing you want to look at is the right side. This is going to be the community members. You have your from.end team. So whenever you see someone in red, that is a from.end team member. We have our students or our community members in blue, and then we have our from.end premium students in gold right here. And you can see them all along. And then the green is just we call them OGs, the people that have been in our community for a long time. To your left here, we have all the different discussions. We talk about Bitcoin, alts. You can ask whatever question you'd like in the discussions and questions. Airdrops, which is basically free coins. We have an algorithm bot just for signals. We have news. So if there's any news that's out in any of the channels, like Cointelegraph, Daily Hold, there's a bunch of them that are on here. It will always be showing up here, so you don't have to scour the internet for news. You just come to this one central location and you'll be able to find all the things related to cryptocurrency fundamental catalysts that you will need right here. We also talk about stocks, commodities, and Forex, although we don't really trade them too often. We do still like to keep in the loop of global assets like Forex and commodities because gold and silver is doing pretty well right now. And I do have bullion and I do purchase actual gold and silver, but I'm currently not trading the futures market, but I may later on when we do start to see the bulls start to push back again, pushing the price higher past that $1,500 zone for gold. So then we also have some entrepreneurialism. So if you're interested in starting a business, e-commerce, all that stuff, anything digital entrepreneurship we're really interested in, so come here and then we get to talk about it. And then the rest is just general discussions and some simple stuff. And this is the from.end Premium. This is going to be the absolutely vital thing for traders if you do want to get educated on trading the cryptocurrency market. We have over 20 videos, and this is just educational videos. All of them are going to be like 40 minutes to 45-ish minutes long. Some are 30 minutes, but they all talk about really important things in the cryptocurrency market. We also have books here, which also go in depth with technical analysis, investing, all that stuff. And we also have day trading and swing trading alerts for the people who want to potentially take the same trades as us. The last thing we're going to talk about is the Bitcoin updates. So we do a video every week. So we do one once every 7 days or sooner if there's a huge market shift. Like let's say if Bitcoin pumped 40% like it did a little bit, maybe like 2 weeks ago, we would actually post another one even though we did 2 days ago because it's such a strong market shift. So this is what you'll be able to expect from this point onward from us is instead of just posting it for the from.end premium members, what we decided to do is not only post it for our students, but we're also going to provide it absolutely for free on the YouTube so you guys know what's happening with us and you guys know where we stand with the market and what trades we could possibly be taking. Now we won't be actually telling you guys every single trade we take for the alts, but we do provide a BTC analysis very frequently throughout our Discord in the BTC chart. So we'll talk about Bitcoin, we'll talk about Ethereum, we'll talk about Ripple, the major pairs we will talk about, but the more small cap coins like Atom, ETC, Matic, those are the types of coins that the Performante Premium members only will be able to view for our trades, because we do like trading both the bigger cap coins as well as the very small volatile coins as well. And the Binance margin account allows us to both long and short, so it gives us the ability to really play the market whichever way we want. So now that we've broken down the Discord, just a really quick overview. There's a ton more to go into, but this is going to be a real quick video of how the Discord works. So now that we've covered that, we can now jump into the charts and start our BTC analysis. Alright, so we're going to start off with a monthly here on the Gemini exchange. We like to go from bigger time frames to smaller time frames. This is called top-down analysis, meaning we start off with the monthly or the weekly, and then we slowly work our way to the daily, the 6 hour, the 4 hour, the 1 hour, and all the way down. So we can align all the different time frames into a single trade, so we have the best probability of actually being right. So let's just look at the monthly here. We're not going to draw anything just yet. Also, we are using TradingView for our charting system. It's a free program to use. We paid for the pro version because there's no ads, and it's a very, very powerful tool that I think is very beneficial for all traders. But it is delayed for stocks, but it's not delayed for Forex and crypto. But let's talk about the price action here. So after we did see the huge bullish push right here, what we are seeing right now, let's get our arrow, is we do see a lot of wicks coming down when the price is consolidating downwards. This shows to me that there's a lot of sell movement in the market. There's a lot of sell pressure in the market. The price is coming all the way up here, but the sellers are saying no and rejecting it right back down. And we've seen for the last 3 months that we have closed lower than the open. Now we have been seeing decreasing sell volume, which is good for us because that means the sellers are weakening. Ideally, this month right here would have had green bullish volume if we wanted to see a reversal. So that is telling me that we could still see some movement to the downside, but we are seeing a little bit more buy volume come in because with these candles, we don't see a huge wick, or we don't see huge wicks on the bottom, but we see bigger wicks on the top. That means there's more sell pressure. But then this doji candle does indicate that it's about even. We see that the wick on both sides is about even, giving us a indication that the buyers are slowly starting to come in. And then on here, we see a little bit bigger of a wick, but I'm still not certain of a potential market shift. And then looking at the horizontal demand zone, we do see that there's a key demand zone right around here, which is going to potentially hold us. But if it does not, I think that we are going to look at that 6K range, which is going to be just right down here. So that is where I'm looking at for the final, if it does not actually bottom at the $7,800 range right around here. But that is a plausible outcome in the case of it dropping all the way down to 6K. And if we do look at BLX here and take a step back into the, I guess, macro picture of Bitcoin, we can see that if we move from the monthly to the weekly, just so it's a little bit more precise, and then we do the logarithmic chart, and then what we can see is if we draw a curved trend line just right here, so we go here and draw a curved trend line, we've been holding this for quite some time. And then if we line up this zone with the 6K zone, we have a zone of confluence for the potential buyers to be lining up. So it's not going to be a guarantee, but if we do see a drop below our current support, what I could potentially look for is a bounce around this zone because it is a key level of confluence. This isn't perfectly lined up here. We do see a little bit of a dip, so we could adjust it a little bit more. So we have a touch here, we have a touch here, we have a touch here, and that is looking pretty darn respected. And then we'll just move this up a little bit so it's touching that point right there, just the $3,400 zone, and that is our zone of confluence. Now when we do get zooming into the smaller time frames, we can identify the market structure that is occurring right here. So we did mention that this was the structural low that there's going to be a lot of demand at. And what we can identify is this level of previous support, which is now a current resistance. So this level right here has been the previous support for the structure that was a triangle right here. And then once we broke out of it, We got no retest, so what did we need to do? We needed a retest in order to validate it as a new resistance. And that's exactly what we did here, is we got a push down, a retest, and although we did get more buy volume, we are seeing the continuation and the impulse move to the downside. So just from looking at the price action here, I do think that there could be a possibility of the price going all the way down to the 62-ish range right here, which would be a confluence of the curve zone as well as the horizontal zone we can see right here. Now we could draw an ascending zone here, which would potentially not actually have the candle hit all the way here. But what I'm thinking is, because it's such a wide zone, we could see the body of the candle close at this ascending trend line and then the wick touch that 6K zone. So that could be a possibility, kind of like we saw around here, where we saw the body close right here, but the wick came all the way down here. That's, I think, what could happen here, is if we do see a fall below that $7,800 zone, we'll see a sharp drop in the wick hitting the 6K, but then we may close at the 62. So that could be a possibility. And also, what I want to point out is not only the zone of confluence just for the horizontal point, but for the descending zone right here. So that was also a key zone that we wanted to pass. And if we just connect it right there, we did pass that zone, but we see that there's a wick right there. And if we touch the wick, we are still not closed beyond that zone. So what we could do is just draw a projection zone, because it is a zone of resistance, not a single point on a chart. So if we do this, we can encapsulate the entire price action for the wick there, touching the candles there, as well as touching the wick there. So that is still within our area. We see the price action still within our area, so it's still looking good. It could be a pullback, and then once we break past the $9,300 zone, we could see a lot of bullish momentum continue. But until we do, I'm looking more bearish. So let's continue on with our trade plan here. Let's close this guy and move on to the daily. So we're back at the Gemini exchange because BLX is a little bit delayed, and then when you get into the smaller time frames, it just doesn't work because obviously it's delayed and you can only go to the daily for the smallest time frame for BLX. So this is going to be Gemini, and we're going to be talking about this section right here because this is what's most important. So we will look at just that trend line that we drew in before, that guy right there where we have a touch right here. And then we respect it all along this zone. And I like to draw my trend lines red and green because red indicates a resistance while green indicates a support. So we do see that clear descending trend line. And then what we can also draw is another descending trend line connecting the lows right here. So what can we see right here? We see that this zone here, we see the candle close here, and then we see a body of the candle close right on it, and we see a wick touch that zone here, and then we saw a shift down soon after. And then we can see over here that we saw a candle close right on this zone. We did see a close around near this area, but this isn't a clear zone to close off of. We wanted to see a nice, accurate, precise close like here. And then this trend line turns into a new support. But we can see right here that it did close, and it's looking like it's closing below the support. We still have a few more hours, obviously, on the daily. It doesn't show the time frame right here. It usually shows the clock where the countdown of the candle close. So if this does close red, I'm looking more bearish because not only did we reject off the key level of resistance right here, the trend line, but then we actually broke the support there that we've been holding for quite some time. And then let's look at our horizontal zones here because that is also going to be a key player in our analysis. So let's go to our rectangle and then draw our key zones. This was the previous high for the market structure, which is also in line with spring of 2019. So we will draw our nice resistance right here, which is still our support, which is going to be in confluence with that descending zone. So if we do break this zone, it is going to be, for me at least, a sharp fall down because we're breaking the zone of confluence. Now we still want the the daily to close because it's still not closed yet. So we still want to see confirmation of a close below that zone, but that's where I'm looking if we actually do close that zone. And then this is going to be the next level of support where we have, if we look here, previous levels of buy sensitivity. We see that all along here, and then it was a previous resistance as well. We can see that right here. And then in the more recent price action, we see that it was a clear bottom for our low, and then it turned into a little resistance before that massive move to the upside. So I think if we do break this zone, we are going to expect to hit that $78-ish $100 zone right here. And we do have a small minor resistance, which was a previous support at the 82, which is just around here. Let's draw that in. So this is also a minor level of support, but I think that if we do break this zone, we're going to go to our next key zone, which is at that $7,800, $7,700 range right around here. And then if we do go beyond that and further down, I did say that that $62-ish $100 zone is going to be the last level of support that I will definitely be looking to buy in at. And if we look at the price action, it's looking like it's going to be around here. So that could be the potential low. And looking back at the bigger time frames here, we can look at the previous support for that massive triangle that we had back in 2017. And it is going to be a pretty wide zone, but that's totally all right. So at this point, if it does come all the way back down here, I'm definitely going to be looking to buy some heavy amounts of BTC if it does get to around this zone, because it is such a key zone of confluence. Look how well the price got respected all along that 6K zone. Not only that, but remember we have that curved zone that came kind of around here, and the price was in confluence kind of around the 62-ish at the 6K zone. So I think that's where we're going to be looking at for a potential longer term buy when we do start to see the price pull back over here. And then this would be the potential risk reward that we'd have, where we have a huge stop loss because it is such a zone of sensitivity and there's a lot of manipulation around this area. We want to keep a very, very large stop loss, probably to around the little lows right here, which yes, we do have 23%. But with anything, risk management comes down to position sizing and how you manage the trade. So a little bit of risk management about our method. We don't risk more than 2% of our total portfolio in a single trade. So this means if we're trading $1,000, we're not risking more than $20. And if we're trading $10,000, we're not risking more than $200. Now, we can have a little bit of wiggle room depending on the level of confidence we have for that setup. Like if it's an A+ setup and it's absolutely perfect, we might be able to have a little bit more wiggle room, like really pushing to that 2%. But if we're a little bit unsure about the price selection and we don't have full confidence, we are not going to enter a 2% of risk of the total portfolio in that trade, because that is a significant amount to lose in a single trade if you really think about it. So risk management is very important. We're not going to get too in-depth about it. I could really literally talk about it for hours and hours, but for this video, we're just going to talk about the potential setup that we could have if we do see a drop below to around the $6,200 zone there, and that would be the potential setup that I would have. If we do enter here, the take profit will be very, very high, because I think that will be the low, and then it's going to basically be going up from that point onwards. And you could be taking profits along the way, but I think if you do get an entry around that area, why would you sell if the overall market is trending upwards? That kind of doesn't make sense unless you are freeing up that capital to potentially invest in something else, or to try to learn how to shorter term day trade, so you're not holding on to the drawdowns. When Bitcoin drops, you're able to capture profits both sides of the market. So let's get into now the smaller time frames here, where we're at the daily and we're going to drop down to the 12-hour, the 4-hour, and then continue onwards. So let's actually just go, instead of the 12-hour, let's just skip right to the 4-hour. I don't think the 12-hour is going to show you that much of a different price action compared to what we're able to see right here. So we see on the smaller time frame, we do have a very clear zone of support that it does look like it is breaking. And then this next zone is going to be our potential next bounce area. We can just raise it up a little bit more so it's touching the third touch right there. And then this green zone is going to be the last level of support. So if we do actually just continue to fall, we have a very, very far fall to actually drop, which is almost 30% here. And we did get an entry right at that retest of the 9K, and we will talk about that when we get into the smaller time frames, but don't want to discuss too much about that single trade, just want to discuss the overall market. So if we look at market structure, what do we see? We see a clear descending zone here, where we see a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and then we had a huge drop where it made a massive lower low. It did hesitate to go to a higher high around the $8,600, $8,700 zone, resisted to go above this key zone, and then we made a lower low. I was definitely a little bit more bearish on here because we made a clear lower low, breaking the market structure. I thought that when we did actually retest this, we were going to actually see some bearish movement because of A, so much sell volume, B, market structure breakdown, and C, nice little retest before they move downwards. So yes, Bit of a fake out, but that's no worry. That's why the markets are going to always humble us, and that's why we have very, very solid risk management skills in order to not get really hit by anything or get phased by any trade, because we have our risk management in place. So after that huge bullish push, we clearly made a higher high. What happened next is we created a base right around that 9K range. So we made a higher high, higher low, could not break the recent high, which was right here, and that was an indication that we could see a drop. And then when we move to the smaller time frames, I will indicate that 9K support, the horizontal zone right here. But just looking at the market structure, it does look bearish because we made a higher high, could not break the higher high again, and then we made a lower low, and then we made a lower high, which was the retest, and then now it looks like we're making a lower low again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do drop to the $8,200 zone, and then we retest this descending trend line to make a bit of a lower high, and then we continue the downward move. So that's the market structure that I see personally right now. And then just looking at the smaller trend lines here, we do see a little trend line right here. So what I'm expecting is that we do see a drop below the zone. We could retest at this zone of confluence because we have three zones of confluence here. We have the horizontal zone, we have this trend line right here, which is the longer term descending trend line, and then we have the shorter term descending trend line also creating the resistance in that same zone. So this is a very, very key level for a potential confluence retest short opportunity. So we will talk about that a little bit more when we get into the smaller time frames. And let's switch from the 4-hour now down to the 1-hour time frame. So this is basically the smallest time frame that we're going to be working in, and we won't really be going down to the 15-minute or anything else. So let's just break this down a little bit more. What do we see? Well, the first thing that we did see was that 9K support that held previous market structure, which was this right here. Now what we were making was clear higher lows like this, and then we were also seeing a bit of a really noisy potential symmetrical triangle. It's not ideal. The first one was potentially here and a little bit right here, but there's not a clear zone like we see for the support. So what happened here? We saw the price respect a clear zone. We did see a lot of buy volume, which could indicate a potential bias to the upside, but once we did break it and the 1-hour candles did close below the zone, and then we retested multiple times, then we got a dump down, breaking the 9K zone, which was our support, and then falling to our next level of support, which was the roof of the previous market structure, which is right here. So what happened then? We were expecting a push back up and a entry right around here. This was shown in the BTC charts right here, BTC USD 4-hour chart. This is my plan of attack. So this is exactly what I did. After we saw the drop below 9K, I wanted to see a push up, retesting the 9K zone. That's where I was going to enter, and I wanted to see a push up to back down to the 86 zone, and then we will probably see some consolidation around the zone, but inevitably I want to see that 82 and then push all the way down to the 78 around here. So that was my plan of attack for this trade, and it really came out to be true. This was where we entered right here. So this was our entry with our stop loss just above that wick there. So we were looking on the 15-minute at this price action, and we let the price action play out a little bit, seeing a lot of doji candles, not seeing a lot of movement. And then this was our trade where we entered right here. Our stop loss was below the wick, and then we did take some profits right around here, but the major take profit is going to be around the low right there. So we still are holding on, and it's looking really good, but just wanted to describe why we took this potential trade. So it was because we broke it and then retested. The market structure was now in a bearish trend because we broke the previous market structure, and we needed to test that same recent floor for a new resistance, and that's why we took that trade. So we do see a descending zone here, and we didn't identify that until we saw this high right here, and it's from the very high of the structure, and it's a descending zone connecting the highs like so. And we do see a little bit of a candle poking out of the zone, and if we do push it a little bit lower, it will be a little bit more precise, but we're going to put it right here because it's not a perfect line, but we want to make sure that it's going to be perfectly aligned. So then we have to make sure that we're precise with our trend lines. So we got to put it right there. Don't think that will fix anything, but let's see if it does change our price action a little bit. Not a whole lot. I'd like to see this a little bit more precise, and then ideally we would have had all those touches right there. So what we could do is use a projection and just understand the zone that it was in and not really be able to draw true trend lines. and that's the zone that it was in right there. And obviously both would be red because they are resistance zones, like we can see like so. So that is the actual exact setup that I have with my trade right now, where I am not really looking to take any profits too much because we just saw a break in that support. So I think if we could see a little pullback to validate this zone again, it'd look really good for the next leg down. I may even add to my position because we see increasing sell volume coming into the market. It's a very solid structure. We just broken a very key zone of support, and it looks like we are holding and going to push back a little bit before the next leg down. So that is my plan of attack. Let's just draw it in to get a better understanding of it. So this was going to be the first potential pushback up to retest this zone as a new resistance, and then we may get a push down, and we may get a little bit of a consolidation, and then inevitably I think we are going to come all the way back down here. So that is the potential trade that I'm going to be looking at. We see a nice slow fall taking steps all the way down, and we did see something similar back in the breakdown right here, where we saw the attempt to try to get back up, but we're seeing slow drops, breaking supports slowly, and then we saw the massive move down. So this is kind of what I'm looking at in the same format, except right here, where we see a lot of movement down. We do see some buyers try to pick it back up. We see big wicks here, big wicks here. We see the price hold this move up, but we're not seeing any continuation like we saw here. We saw a move up. We're seeing the bulls trying to push the price up, but we're not getting the bulls to continue, and we're not getting the bulls to hold. So that's bearish for me that we could see another drop similar to what we saw after breaking the 9K. So this 76-ish, $7,700 zone is definitely something that we could attain, I think, in the near future. And there is one final trend line that I do want to draw before I complete this analysis, and this is a not very confident line. I'm not super confident in it. It still does connect very significant lows right here. So if we draw that in right there and zoom in, we can really see the lows that connected pretty well. We see the anchor point right here. Let's get a little bit more accurate with that. And then we see, if we drop this down a little bit, just so we see these two touch points right here, and then we see another two touch points right here, we can see that it's now creating a key level of resistance, and it's not looking like it's able to pass right now. So we could actually see the price not even make it to this level, but actually just plummet down soon after. So we will see how that's looking. On the smaller time frames, we do see higher lows and a horizontal support, creating an ascending triangle, and because it's such a bearish momentum, I do expect it to push to the downside, but we will see. So that's my analysis for Bitcoin. There's not a whole lot to talk about at this point underneath the 1 hour, other than the little triangle there. But for me, on the shorter term time frame, it's looking more bearish. But on the bigger term time frame, it's looking more bearish. Like I'm talking, if we do come even down to the 6K, I am long-term bullish on Bitcoin. So I don't want to get this video too long, but we will quickly cover Ethereum as well. We won't go into the smaller time frames like the 1 hour and under, but we will stick with the weekly, daily, and then 4 hour time frames. So I didn't actually mention this, but just some real quick things with our technical analysis. We are calling the different touch points either type A, B, or C. So let's say we have a touch point like this, and we see the candles close right on it. So this candle right here, we see the price did approach above it, but then at the end of the day, the wick is still protruding out of the candle, and we closed right on the trend line. That is a type B. A type A is when we see a candle wick just touch that line. So this line right here, this wick touching the trend line, would be a type A, and then a type C would be, for example, if we have a trend line like this, and then we see the wick come out past the trend line, but it comes right back in. We don't see a body close around there, and we don't see a wick touch that zone. So that is a type C. So I wanted to clarify that instead of just saying touch points. I wanted to make it a little bit more precise for you. We do teach all this, and obviously we're not able to teach everything that we are able to provide on the YouTube. It would just be like over 20 hours of videos. But we will slowly explain our methods over time in our videos. So if you stick around enough, if you watch our videos very consistently, you will be able to gather information on how to trade like us and how to figure out how our method works in the market. So from the weekly, we will just figure out our key zones of supply and demand. So that is the first zone right here, very easy to tell, and that is our current low. So we are kind of within the middle of the market structure, and if we want to do a minor zone, it would be right there. We see that being used as a key level of support, resistance, and now it's a support again. So we did see a lot of buyers enter the market around here, but then after the break of the ascending trend line, we've been seeing a little bit of a low. We have hit a key level of support at the 160-ish range right there, and we haven't made a lower low, so that is good for the bulls. It does look like we could easily come back down to the 157-ish range right around here, but the really key indication that we aren't going to drop lower is a hold around this level. If we drop below this level, I'm definitely going to expect the price to come down maybe to around the 113, maybe even the $100 range right around here, and that would be a very, very significant drop. But for now, that key level of 160 is where I'm going to be looking at for the smaller time frames. So let's zoom in now from the weekly to the daily. There's not a whole lot to cover at this point with the technical analysis on the weekly. So on the daily, we do see the consolidation continue. We're just seeing a nice sideways action. We do see some lower highs be created. We see a high here, we see a lower high, and then we see a lower high. And then we are looking like we're creating a bit of a resistance right here, not really being able to push past any highs. So that's not good for the bulls, and the slight downtrend is not good either, although we aren't seeing lower lows, so it's not a clear downtrend. Like for example here, this is a clear uptrend where we see a high, we see a higher high, we see a higher high, a higher high, and all these higher lows getting connected by a nice trend line. But unfortunately in this trend right here, although we did break the ascending trend line, we're not seeing a very clear descending bearish trend where we see lower lows and lower highs. We see lower highs, but we still see the hold of that support right here. So that is going to be our key level of support. So on the daily chart, we could connect the lower highs with a trend line. So we could just connect them right here, although it's not really perfect in any way. We don't really see any zones of confluence or anything like that. We could put it up to this point where we have a nice type A here and a nice type A all around here. We aren't seeing the actual any significant close at the top there. So if we did want to use this trend line to actually have a valid zone, we would need to use our projection to actually capture the whole scope of the trade, which would be all the way up here. So I'm not loving how much room that is there. I'm not really going to use that because that's just too much room for me to work with. Now, what we did also see is a trend line that came from all the way up here. So we did connect the highs here, just making it a little bit more precise, connecting all the way from up there, making it red because it's a resistance. See, now this is a zone that we can actually use to potentially find a area where the price will bounce if it does drop. So what I'm looking at is we have a very clear resistance right here where it's been used to hold the price below a certain zone for a long time. So we have a clear zone of supply, and then we also have a clear zone of demand, which is right here. Now what we could see is because we see the price consolidate up here, we are seeing the price drop below a key zone. So it is looking really good for a potential short, and then the potential area to buy back would be the zone of confluence, not only from the horizontal zone, but from the descending zone, which is now a new support because we need to validate it by respecting it as a new support, retesting this area. So let's look on the smaller time frames here. Now that we understand the market structure, it's going sideways, it's not making new highs, and we still have a low here that could get touched because we're just in a sideways consolidation and we're able to bounce from resistance to support, and we can profit off that volatility. So let's now jump to the 4 hour and see what we're able to find. So here is that ascending trend line we see right here, and we just got a break of that zone. We see that right here, so we got a retest. Very, very nice retest. We got a lot of sell volume coming in soon after the retest. And if we zoom in here, that is a massive bearish candle. So we saw the price open here, come all the way up here, but the sellers said, no, you're not going to close here. Pushed it right back down, and we closed below that area. So that is a very bearish sign, and I'm really looking for a bearish move on Ethereum. So let's take our short position out here. So we did pull back here. I was asleep when this happened. I did notify our members, and some of our students did get a short right here, which is a phenomenal entry. And we did have signals telling people to short right here when it did pull back, which it did. So that was ideal. I was asleep, so I couldn't take that trade, unfortunately, but we're still seeing a potential trade occur here. So what are we looking for? We're looking for a potential pullback, right? So I think what we could see is a pullback to around maybe this level. Ideally, we're not expecting a huge level of pullback, but that is the potential first level of a pullback. We do see a little bit of a descending zone here, not much to work with, so I think this is all we have to work with right now. So I think the plan from me is potentially to see a pull all the way to maybe this zone here, and then this would be my trade. I would have a pretty high stop loss above the wick there because I think this is a very high probability trade, and then the take profit is going to be around this zone of confluence, around the 165-ish zone here. Now remember that I talked about the potential of it passing this, and if it did, we'd see the price even drop further. So I think if we do see the price drop all the way to here, I will take a large portion of my position, but because we see the momentum so strong to the downside, I'm going to hold some of my position to see if we can get below this structure. If we are, we will see even a further drop, thus making us more money, and that's the name of the game. So we will potentially look to enter here, and let's jump into the 1 hour to see if we are seeing a somewhat of a pullback. And it does look like we are seeing somewhat of a pullback, but look at how much sell volume there is. That's huge volume distribution, and that's what we're looking for our entry on a short position. Now, ideally, because we see a lot of sell volume, we're not going to see a lot of buy volume back up, but I would like to see the price push up to around this zone here, maybe the 180, 181, somewhere around there would be ideal. So looking even at the real 1 hour time frame, zooming right in, we see that this whole area right here was a previous support, right? So we see right here was a potential low, and then we made a new low, and then we'll just push this all the way back down here, and then this is our potential zone for a retest. So we see a lot of buy pressure around here, and then we see buy pressure around here. This last time we tried to push the price back up, we see this big wick right here. This for me is an indication that there is buyers trying to push it up, but the sellers have control and the sellers have more confidence, and they are going to actually dominate pushing this further down. So this does not mean that we won't get a pullback. We see pullbacks happen very often, even in very bearish moves. We're just looking for a nice pullback to validate this zone for a new resistance before making our move to the short side. So ideally, that's something that we want to look for. We'll probably have a risk of around 3.5 if we do get a pullback all the way to around this area. We'd like to see the 1 hour candle close, and ideally it'd be really good to see a doji like this one here, or around these levels where we see a doji and we see some hesitation in the price. That's what we want to see, except going the other way. So we see right here, we see a push down, and then we see the price trend the opposite direction. That's what we're wanting to see. So we see the price trend this way, and then we want it to hold this level, and then when we start to see trending back down, that's what we want to enter because we have a confirmation of a bounce. But that's the trade that I'm looking for on Ethereum. It could potentially play out if we do pull back to this level, and one of the reasons why I am extending this all the way out here is because the descending level here is still proving to be a level of significance, so we could still see the price explode back up, passing this horizontal zone and then touching this line right here. And I don't want to get stopped out by putting my line right here, and I think that it's a high probability trade, and if I enter here, I still will have a really solid risk reward because my first take profit is going to be at that green zone, and it's going to be a minimum of 2.5, and it could be a maximum around 3.3. So that's a very favorable risk reward. Ideally, we're looking for around 2.5 to 3.5, and the minimum that our risk reward is going to be at is going to be 2. We're not going to take any trade a risk reward that's less than 2. It just isn't worth it for us. So the minimum here we're looking at is around 2.4, 2.5, so I am interested in this trade, and we're just waiting for a few things to align before we actually enter the trade, but we have a very, very good understanding of what could happen, and we have a plan set in the case that if it does pull back, we have a very, very strict and set plan that we're going to implement to actually potentially capture profits again in this market. So I hope you guys and girls liked this analysis. We will be posting something similar to this once a week where we might not only just do BTC and Ethereum, but we'll do a lot of the other alts as well. I think we're going to stagger them. It's not good to have too long of a video or if it goes on for an hour and a half or whatever. So I think we're going to do strictly just Bitcoin and Ethereum because those are the two key charts that we want to be looking at, especially Bitcoin, but Ethereum does have a lot of volume and a lot of significance in the cryptocurrency market. But I think for the next one, we will be doing things like XRP, Link, BNB, LTC. All those are going to be in the next video, so stay tuned. We'll do a bit of a brief overview on a lot of alts instead of just an in-depth overview of Bitcoin and Ethereum. But it's good to have both. It's good to have an understanding of the overall market. But I think starting off with the main pairs, Bitcoin especially, is a really good place to start. So like I said before, the Instagram, the TikTok, and the Discord links will be in the description, and feel free to join the Discord. It's absolutely free. Ask either Keith or Nathan a question. Those are going to be the two admins that you'll be asking questions to if you have any, and hopefully we see you there. So I hope you guys and girls have an amazing day, and happy trading. See you guys next time.